So the other day, among other projects I've been working on, I thought I'd play around a little bit with something. Got out the good old NE555 timing chip and thought I'd tinker around with it a bit, going back to basics. Yep, on off, on off, on off, on off, etc., etc. But then, related to some other stuff I've been looking at, I had an idea. The enormously overcomplex 3-bit BCD for 5-state LED control for some logic gate network conceptualization. However, for the design on screen, the logic gate setup was, well... Ha! But I made a new one, and I'm pretty sure this one even works. Problem was, previously, when creating the truth table for this, I put some of the inputs as don't matter, which had the result of, well, I didn't work out the details, but it screwed things up. It required 2 quad dual input NOR gate integrated circuits, and I only had 1. So I ended up throwing together a few RTL NOR gates to make up the difference. Threw them together on a breadboard, and they seemed to work acceptably. I forgot to take testing footage, but here's some of a OR gate I did beforehand. Come on. While I procrastinate on running all these lines, let's take a closer look at the NE555 part of this circuit. So basically I have these 3 transistors, and they're meant to control or basically relegate which channel goes to 3 of these resistors, these big chunky guys, well, one of them's a smaller one, and those control the 3 different states. I got a bunch of, I think, two N 3904s or something, and then there's the LED. The NE555 part's your typical A-stable timing circuit. I think it's A-stable. And then you've got the 3 transistors, which here are listed as BC547s, but I think I changed them up. Yeah, I suppose that would happen. You know, the thing about fire that I think gives such a visceral dread in people isn't even so much the whole, burning alive part. It's its ability to wipe out legacy as well. Down to even the tiniest molecular components. But I have to admit, the whole thing left me feeling a bit shaken for a while. It was a close call. Okay, let's move on to the next bit now. So for the next little while, I was pretty aimless, just going from curiosity to curiosity, and the heat wave started, so I never functioned very well then. Boy, I look like death in this.
Remember that episode of Enterprise where they were going through some radiation-heavy nebula or something, and they had to all hunker down in the heavily shielded bowels of the warp engine something? Well, that's what this period felt like. Hunkering down on the back of the trailer with the only working air conditioner. So one of the nights in the middle of the night when it was cool, I thought I'd look at some of the stuff I got from the Canadian Computer Collector.
I have unscrewed them. Canadian Computer Collector, what matter of shenanigans have you put into my hands? I like it. I really like it. I think the battery charger, there's something wrong. Oh, God. Dad!
Let's all just enjoy life. Let's celebrate. Let's get weird with it. Let's pour some chili in a sleeping bag and spend the night outside, you know?
I will take that under advisement. Anyways, I think I figured out what's wrong with this little Novo. I think it's just the battery that needs to be replaced. So I'll do that when I can afford it.
You know, for once, I wish things didn't have to be needlessly complicated. How do I get this ramps when it has... J.J. Abrams ain't got shit on me, baby.
Then I got back to the BCD thing. Momentarily. I have this tendency to form emotional attachment to objects resulting from productive processes. I guess I develop somewhat of a loyalty to them, especially when they have fulfilled certain utilities for me over a period of time. I can't help but think about each object, or object of objects, as a story. There was someone who designed it, people who used their hands and mind to assemble each item representing specific tasks, acting as part of a larger system that fulfills an overall broader task or combination of tasks. I've always liked regular car reviews in this respect. I like how he has a tendency to explore the, dare I say, sociological atmosphere that exists when a particular car was designed and produced. We live in a time when the scope of value within the collective consciousness is very narrow, limited to econometric at the expense of all else, to the point where we largely have no sense of, for example, the first value of all things, labor, something that even Adam Smith, the intellectual personification of capitalist apologia within the realm of the hyperreal, was a proponent of.
With that in mind, I strongly believe that the... in this bit of the script I have a bit that says play up the pomposity. Anyways, I believe that the cultural focus point of the project car is a wonderful example of an unconscious longing for gaining this elusive sense of value that, in my opinion, is fundamental to human fulfillment. Like beings wandering through the mist trying to grasp onto something that they have a drive to seek without even knowing what it is, without even having a clear sense of what that is, even when they manage to grasp onto it in those brief moments. To me, I view the project car endeavor as a constantly continuing process, because even if I manage to get this thing back into tip-top condition, something I hope to do one day, should circumstances allow,
that it would not prevent me from seeing it as a means to fulfill a utility, that any degradation is merely representative of the eventual opportunity to revisit the process that I had previously, further chance to add to the creative legacy that all started with those assembly line workers at General Motors Arlington Assembly in, Arlington, Texas in the late 1980s.
It is very warm out. Oh, humidity.
I'm sure I'll go more into my extensive and extremely unrealistic at present time with present resources plans that I have for this thing. To put it simply, to create the greatest long-haul driver that has ever been mechanically birthed into the world. Also, it's going to munch down wavelengths like an RC-135 rivet joint. My goal for the day wasn't anything crazy, just poke around and check some of the things before I start the thing once the new gas tank is installed. The oil, which looked a bit awful, but at least exists. Hopefully my carb rebuild I did a year or so back is still mostly fine. A little bit of cosmetic rust, but everything else looks fine. Finally, I want to pop off a few of the spark plugs and poke this cheapo endoscope camera that barely worked as intended, but I managed to get it to work with my Lenovo ThinkPad tablet thing that looks like it came off the set of Stargate Atlantis.
Oh, wow. That actually looks really good. Nice. Nice. Very nice.
At this point, I was beginning to go a bit nuts at all the clutter around my work lab office sleep room. So without being able to address the really annoying part quite yet, I decided to at least clean up my workbench that had become a black hole of many random bits and things. I do know that in the realm of the discourse, there is a tendency of advocating for acts like cleaning your room, not as a means for improving one's mental health, quality of life, or smoothing out workflow and making it easier to function, but rather as a means of a thought-terminating cliche targeting any such thought that seeks to solve problems beyond the realm of one's individual self-oriented actualization. This is a pretty common mode of steering people to a mindset that thinks of individual action focused on oneself and individual and/or collective action focused on systemic change as two mutually exclusive and inherently opposing forces, a trend that is, in words reflecting the forefront of human descriptive language, pretty dumb. But the sad consequence I notice sometimes from all this is a sort of visceral knee-jerk reaction to the political and cultural bulk that a statement like clean your room can take up in our, let's say, unique period of discourse that we live in, where something that is objectively good ends up being weighed down by the ideological bulk that has been slathered all over it, and the simple action is almost lost in it.
Alrighty, so I am going to attempt to power this thing on in first time in a long time, although I'm not expecting much. I do have this little thermometer temperature thing just to keep an eye on the temperature of the amplifier chips. I think they're amplifier chips. I don't have any speakers connected right now. I want to just try powering it on first. I think I should trim that just to be safe. Just give this a little snipperoo. Thankfully I do have the fuse. Well, that's disconcerting. In place, it's a bit wobbly. Is it still doing that? It is. Alright, so it must be in my circuit. I'm gonna... This is admittedly rather bodged-y. Okay, that must be... Okay, I think I know what's going on. I think it's just the Because the minute well, if that's the case, I think we should be okay to go. I'm going to set this all up a bit better and try again. Alright, notes for Delco radio amplifier board. I do believe the left amplifier DM165 is shot. Actually, yeah, it's only one of the capacitors, the bias capacitors for these chips seems like it's exploded. It seems like it's that one. I'm going to replace them all regardless, but I think I'm going to have to find at least one of these DM165 chips. No smoke? Oh! The display still works! Oh, I'm so happy! Oh my gosh, you have no idea how happy I am right now. Okay, let's check the... Just a further note, the left amp DM165 is the one towards the top of the unit as oriented in its regular orientation, and the right one is on the bottom, which is opposite of the reference pictures from the How To Almanac site. It's probably be easier to do voiceover.
Before I get to finishing my narrative through line, I decided to take a few days for a routine I haven't been able to do for a while now, Conceptualization Day. Time is relative, don't think about it too much. From time to time, I like to take a few days, or sometimes a week, to just spend time with all the various concepts that I've been hung up on for a while. Because I find the key for figuring things out, at least for me anyways, isn't so much about an act of inserting knowledge into your head that previously wasn't there, or grinding it, but rather like developing a relationship with someone over time, that as you spend more and more time with, you form those new neural pathways that make something previously elusive, entirely or partially unfamiliar, feel intuitive to interact with. Within that process, one thing I found very useful is that when something just is not clicking with me, to set it aside and move on to some other fixation for a while, because I know that almost every time that eventually I'll be going through something related to that original thing again in the future, and I suddenly think, oh, that makes perfect sense now. And if not, the process repeats itself. The subject of my attention this time is all the various nuances of amplification circuitry, because while I do get the basic concept of the thing, and even some of the finer detail, I never feel like I truly understand something unless I can get to the point where I feel I understand how everything works and how manipulating all the variables that create the broader system impacts the overall function in a variety of circumstances. The processing of developing a consciousness is an interesting one to me, and I think we handicap ourselves a lot with our notions around willpower and perseverance. Don't get me wrong, both of them are very powerful mental tools in the tool chest, but in our late-stage capitalist world, they are treated less as tools and more like magical spells that imbue you with mystical powers, rather than tools that have their areas of application, strengths and weaknesses. But no single tool can do everything in all circumstances. You've got to be smart about how you use it, otherwise you're just going to end up hurting yourself in one way or another.
Now blue. Where am I going to put the...
I am speaking to you from the quite far future. I'm actually well into the recording of the next video, but number of crises and calamities, and I've been sick for a while, so haven't gotten to finishing this until now. Anyways, as far as the BCD thing, you can see me working on it here. I threw it together, all the jumper wires. Didn't work. I did it all rather quickly. To be honest, at that point, I was kind of tired of the thing and had moved on to other stuff. So, yeah, that's, I might, once I get my CNC circuit fab thing, sort of the finishing touches on it, I might come back to this, because I can make a circuit and not have to deal with a gazillion jumper wires that I don't feel like troubleshooting. But anyways, I achieved all the conceptualization stuff I wanted to from that, because I have these MC or 68K chips, you know, the ones I used to use. I think they used them in the Sega Genesis and the Mac, the Mac Plus series, or, you know, the 512K or all those ones. And I wanted to build a little simple computer with them. And of course that uses a lot of binary stuff, and that was a good way of kind of getting to terms with it. So, yeah, I think that's a good message for this first video. You know, it's about the journey, not the destination. Anyways, if you're still around here, I thought I would just ignore the giant tonal shift from astrophotography to whatever this is. I really want to get back to the astrophotography again, but I had lots of technical difficulties, particularly with the guiding, because I admit sort of overloaded the HEQ5. Not really ideal to use a gigantic Newtonian and then the auto focus thing and a bunch of other stuff. I have another idea that I'd like to get to, but I've been working on a lot of other stuff at the moment, so in the future, one hopes. But until next time, whenever that is. Jeez, my throat's feeling raw. I don't normally talk this much. It's kind of sad, I guess.